This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Hello and welcome to Tracks from the Edge, Trek FM's show in which we provide audio commentary for all 15 episodes of Star Trek Discovery as they air. I'm Mike.
I'm Max.
And today we are going to be discussing episode 13 of Star Trek Discovery, What's Past is Prologue. For those people who are not familiar, you can watch along with us, listening to us while you're watching the show, and you'll be able to see us comment on what's going on screen from time to time. And if you're not watching the episode with us, that's perfectly fine. This will work fine on its own. Occasionally, you might not know what we're talking about, but you'll be able to pick up on this. You know, you're smart. You're smart. We have faith in you. So, Max, if you are ready, we are going to start this up. But as per usual, we're going to go past the station logo or whatever you want to call it, the CBS All Access logo or the Crave logo or the Netflix logo, and we're going to start this with the episode paused in the black, and we're going to give a countdown and start it up in 3, 2, 1, start. Previously on Star Trek Discovery, they changed the music for the previously on Discovery segment, which I think what they had been using was actually a cue from an episode, so maybe they just had more music and they're like, oh, let's use this time. You know.
I didn't notice the change. I actually tend to not pay attention to the previously ons for this show.
Yeah.
I don't usually start actually watching until a minute in.
Yeah. You let the buffer start buffering or whatever it is. Get the good.
No, it's just such a weird thing. It's like I go to the CBS app and I start it up and I'm like, this is weird. This is still weird to me. It's like a Star Trek show, and it's in a weird new era. It's on demand, but I also have to wait until a particular time and day. It's like, what is that about? It's just strange. It's whatever year this is. If you've got a show online, just give me the whole season. Don't make me do this week to week thing.
Yeah, well, they don't want people binging them all and then canceling their service. Maybe a little while down the road when there's enough stuff on CBS All Access that they don't have to worry about people only subscribing for one show, then they can do that. I don't know.
I'm sure people do that. I'm sure people are already planning to cancel their service, but it's such an insignificant amount. It's just not a big deal. I don't really see a concern there.
Well, there's so many now, $10 for stars, $10 for this, $10 for that. I can see someone canceling this so that they can subscribe to, say, stars and watch the Girlfriend Experience. You know what I mean? The show's amazing, by the way.
I don't see that. That seems just weird to me.
Okay. So again, here's an episode where there's no teaser. It just, pops right in, which I like. I prefer when the episode just starts with this thing. I don't know why. I just do. I also, by doing that, the gap between movies and TV narrows just a little bit more. If only they were to get rid of the the cuts to black in between the acts, which I understand is there because they do run commercials. But, whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, like those act breaks are going to be awkward forever. I still occasionally see something on TV and I think that's going to be terrible when people are just watching this in a single go through a whole season.
Yeah.
It's just, come on, get over it, guys. TV's gone. It's a new era. We're not
now
making things for commercials anymore.
Now that they're all like cuts to black, you could very easily just cut out the black entirely and go from one scene to another, and it would be fairly seamless aside from maybe the music, but I don't know.
Yeah, most of the time it's seamless. Sometimes it's super awkward.
I mean, they've gotten away from like the cliffhanger thing, where it's like, no, Luke, I am your father. Fade to black, fade up. No, that's not true. That's impossible. How could you be my father? You know what I mean? Where it's like really like there's almost like a recap of like, as I was saying, Luke, I am your father. That kind of thing.
No, I know what you mean. I know you're saying like they've gone away from that, but like I just saw that on like Supergirl last week, so it's still happening, and I still find it annoying.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, they don't do it on this show. It doesn't seem.
No.
So that's good. So, okay, so we're into this episode now, and we've got Mira Lorca with Mira Landry, Rekha Sharma, who's awesome. I hope they go to other universes just so that they can bring Rekha Sharma back again and again and again on this show. But whatever. So
she's dead in at least one other universe.
Yes, she is. She is. So okay. We're starting to put together the pieces of this plan, and Lorca it's someone who was trying to overthrow the Empress, but unlike I think a lot of people assumed, like he didn't say like I need to go to this other universe to get something and bring it back here in order to make this plan work. Like and now here we're seeing it. Look at that ship, the Baran. Oh, that's so cool. I just subscribed to the ship thingy, the ships of the whatever it's called, the Eagle Moss ship thing, where you
the ships of the whatever it's called, Eagle Moss ship thing.
Yeah, where you subscribe and you get like one ship a month. Just like, and they've got them for like basically everything that's not Discovery, and now they're doing one which is just Discovery, and I'm like, okay, well, first ship is the Shenzhou, and the second ship is the Discovery, and then after that it's a whole bunch of random ships, and I'm like, well, I'm going to do this for the first 2 months and then cancel my subscription, and I'll have 2 really cool ships. Now I see the
one of those guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, come on. They're all cool, but I've only got so much shelf space. I mean, you've been here before. You know what it's like. I got pop.
You have no shelf space. you need to subscribe to a shelf of the month subscription service where you get new shelves every month. Like you get a Discovery shelf and an Enterprise shelf. You get a Voyager shelf that you keep in a closet.
It's funny because it's true. Anyway, yes. But now that I see that Baran ship, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to stay subscribed to this thing until they get to the Baran in like 3 years or whatever it is. Anyway, but yes, but so it wasn't like his plan to go there and then like grab something, like the Discovery and then come back and, kick everyone's butts here. It was a transporter accident, and he ended up there and now he's just been trying to get back home. He's like Sam Beckett, again, with the Quantum Leap references.
Yeah, it's exactly like Quantum Leap in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I was a little disappointed that his like master plan for overthrowing the Emperor was to shoot her.
Well, speaking of
like
shooting,
it wasn't super clever. It was like yeah, I just need to get on the ship and then I'm gonna shoot her and it'll be done. Problem solved. You know, tiny little package.
I mean, he says, he's like, you don't think I came all this way without a plan, but
Yeah.
I feel like his plan is kind of like I mean, he is talking to a Cylon, so maybe it's like a plan in the Cylon sense, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like, yeah okay. But, you know, that's okay.
Like, I'll think of it once we're done.
Yeah, and then we'll have like a little movie afterwards, which will explain what the plan is.
Yeah.
We'll call it the plan.
I'll tie it all together in a way that is not really satisfying, but explains everything.
A nice little clip show. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, whatever. I guess there were so many theories and I mean, just things that I had in my head, like, what is this plan? And, you know, I don't know. I think I need to see it again to sort of track exactly what it is that he's doing. I mean, that's one of those things where from the beginning, you know, I think watching it all again, you know, the second time we watch this, you know, all the way through, I think it'll be a much different experience and interesting. I mean, obviously, since this is a case where they planned it all from the beginning, it'll be cool to see like the things that we missed and how it does all fit together, or where there might be some gaps and everything. I'm very curious about that. I'm looking forward to it. I've already I'm taking a vacation day from work. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch all 15 episodes leading up to the finale, you know, or 14 leading up to the finale. It's going to be cool. So
maybe use that time to also like build a model.
I'm not good at that. I'm not good at building models. I'm sorry.
No. Okay.
No. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here. We've already missed a lot. This episode has tons of stuff in it. You know what's not in it though? Ash Tyler. That's kind of weird. Like he's literally like they don't even mention him. It's kind of bizarre. I mean, I guess you're driving forward and that's one of those things which I've always wondered, like with Star Trek, where it's like you'll see the episode where they've got one Worf scene. Just because it's like, well, we need to have Worf in here, but we don't really have anything for him to do. Like he
recommends firing photon torpedoes,
right? And then that's
he gets shot down.
Yeah,
and you move on.
But I like the idea of it's like, well, is there naturally a place where you would have, Voq in a scene here in this episode? And it's like, no, there's not. There'd be no reason to go to sick bay, but it still seems weird. Like his absence is conspicuous. Whatever.
Hey, they gave him a day off. I mean, that's nice, Like they shoot for a week. He had a nice time.
Yeah. So I mean, something which I did not pick up on when I was first watching this, aside from one scene, the scene with the flash grenade, but Ted Sullivan, the writer of this episode, was like, oh, well, as I was writing this, I realized that there were a lot of similarities to Die Hard, so I started kind of, structuring it that way because, whatever. But I watching it the second time, I'm like, oh, I can totally see it now, but I think that it's cool how, like, the way that manifests itself in here is not just like, I love Die Hard, so it's going to be Die Hard in the mirror universe. It's not going to be that. It's just going to be, okay, look, here's some elements which, if you know the history of it or whatever, you'll see it, but it's not going to be so obvious that, we're literally like quoting shots or lines from Die Hard, It's like, you don't have Burnham saying like, yippee-ki-yay, melon farmer, or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Come to the mirror universe, get together, have a few laughs.
I think they made that joke on After Trek, to be honest. But yes,
really?
Exactly. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Matt Myra, love that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch the show, but I love that guy.
So, and here's another thing which is interesting. Like all of these, sort of crew members who I feel like on other Star Trek shows would have larger roles because they're like the ops officers or the con officers or whatever. Like they all get a chance to talk here, It's weird. Like the robot lady who's like third in command, well, I guess now second in command on the ship, It's like she starts talking and it's like, whoa, that's weird. She talks, You know what I mean? It's just bizarre. Like, oh, she's got a weird robot voice, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay. This sequence is awesome. I don't know. Star Trek, not exactly known for its like gun battles, but this I think has got to be like one of the best in the history of the franchise. I mean, I really like the fight on Kronos in Into Darkness, but like in terms of like strategics and stuff like that, like this is pretty amazing,
Yeah, I can tell you, like after the first episode of Enterprise, they introduced that phaser, and I was like, oh god, they immediately broke it. Like they had like weapons that had like a kinetic like flow, and you could cut with them, and you could like actually put together a scene. And then they introduced the phaser with that stupid like point and click, and a beam shows up garbage. And I was so frustrated. I was actually like legitimately angry about that. And it's been a long time, and Star Trek has finally figured out that it doesn't matter if they're phasers; you can have them shoot projectiles.
Yeah.
Just have them shoot projectiles.
It seems to be a key to, otherwise it literally is like turning on a remote control. And look at this shot here. I mean, God, this is one of the best looking episodes in the history of the franchise. I think maybe the best looking episode of this show. I mean, the like you got that cool tracking shot in that small space with that wide angle lens and all the practical lighting and everything. It's a very like lush show. I mean, this is a show which embraces its digitalness and doesn't try to look like film. It tries to look as good as digital can look, which I know seems like a simple thing, but it's something which is very rarely done, I don't know.
I think it's being done more and more these days. You see a lot more of it. It's in the usage of like high contrast and like darker scenes. You see a lot more of that these days than you did like even like 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
But yeah, I like the way it looks. It's pretty cool seeing Star Trek go, futuristic. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And not that weird kind of awkward retro futuristic that they've been trying to manage for a long time.
Yeah, it looks good.
Even the J.J. Abrams movies were still trying to somehow like have their like have it both ways. Mm-hmm. Well, like everything was all like bright and happy,
primary colors. And also, you still had the uniforms and everything, but
yeah, it's just like frustratingly awkward trying to make all of those pieces work together. And like,
I mean, I think I really do think they pulled it off with the JJ movies, but
well, I mean, like it's not good. I mean, like, but what they did was they managed it as well as they could. So
you mean the movies?
Yay, good job, you guys! We're so proud of you. But like going your own way and doing your own thing is usually better, even though somebody online will be like, "How come they're not wearing the colors?"
Yeah.
That's my impression of you.
Of me?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
you were like Chekhov shouldn't be there. Get off.
Oh yeah, well, I wrote this whole blog post explaining why these inconsistent, and then the movie comes out, and I'm like, that's the best incarnation of Star Trek ever. So whatever.
Oh,
they redeem themselves for me, so can't. Whatever. I like how that guy has a cape because why not, right?
Yeah. I guess we're leaning into the whole Empire thing. Like there's a point early on where like you see a shot, like the shot starts on like at the top of a door and it says "Long live the Empire."
Yeah.
And I was like why would they bother putting that? Who's like, I want a little plaque that says "Long live the Empire" over the doors. It's like, why would you? Obviously you're just covering something up, and then someone was like, oh, let's get a shot of that, and not thinking like how weird it is that they have a plaque that says "Long live the Empire." Like do we have plaques over our doors, even at like the State Department? Is there a plaque that says like "Go USA"? No, we don't. That's not a thing.
Well, I mean, I can see it as being, like sort of this like constant mess, I mean, obviously like they're trying to control everyone, right? They're trying to control their message, and they want to like brainwash people into, basically giving everything they have to the Empire. So you put those signs up everywhere, and sooner or later, people will just be like, "Yeah, long live the Empire." Why not?
Yeah, I just don't. I don't buy it. I don't buy that they would think that having a little sign that says "Long live the Empire" will do any good.
It looks a little goofy. That's fair.
Yes,
that's fair. One of the things that they did talk about a lot, which we were discussing last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever, we were talking a lot about the Prime universe versus the mirror universe versus our universe, and which one we're in and all that stuff. And one of the things which they mentioned, I mean, by the way, it does seem like the universe is split prior to Enterprise, where or if they were always parallel or whatever. But there's some dialogue in one of the earlier episodes which refers to something which happens like hundreds of years ago, which places it prior to this. So whatever. Anyway,
yep.
But there's still that idea of like, which one are we in? Which universe are we in? And the idea that and also that dialogue pretty much, I mean, because it actually goes back further than we are now. So it looks like we are not in the mirror universe. But if you don't reference that, and if you are willing to sort of like, take things on a metaphorical level or anything like that, one of the things that they were talking about in regards to this episode was the idea of making the mirror universe not so over the top that it couldn't be our reality. Like, maybe the only difference between the mirror universe and our universe is circumstance, and how someone, could have like something happen to them and easily it could push them into their mirror self, and like sort of like narrowing that gap really, like they were saying, they were being very intentional about, kind of like holding up a mirror to us in the 21st century and saying like, hey guys, maybe you'd be right at home in the mirror universe, and maybe you should watch out for that, So that definitely was on their mind. I mean, you can tell just by watching it, of course, but that idea that even though they're not explicitly saying like, and here's the twist, we're in the mirror universe now. There's certainly that on a more intellectual level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're definitely trying to play with the idea that like these are people just like us. Like the only physiological difference between them is a sensitivity to light, and if that's such an insignificant thing, and I would suppose it's pretty insignificant, then people are very easily determined by their environment to be the sort of people that they end up being. The mirror universe is a product of the mirror universe's past, so it's sort of a timeline. But of course, the ships are identical, and all the same people are there, and all the same people have died, and all the same people have had kids, and all the same kids were born, and all the same kids have the same names. So obviously, it's not just a timeline. Oh God.
They did talk about that
frustrating thing.
I mean, like the writer was like, since it doesn't really make any sense scientifically, that kind of gives you some leeway to really push it metaphorically,
If they came out and said like almost everyone has like their counterpart in the mirror universe. It's like virtually identical to our universe, except like really messed up and dark and stuff. Like even the same people like die around the same times, like by vastly different means, except for Dave, who's not there, which is super weird. What does that mean about Dave? What does that tell us about him? That he doesn't matter? That's what I think too.
Well, you were talking about how like you didn't like the fact that the ship, the Charon, was not present in the other universe, and how there is that sort of like mirror or whatever. And there was like this theory that I saw, which was floated out online, which is like, oh well, if you look at the mythology where the name is taken from, Charon, whatever it is, it was like the ship that like someone used to take people to hell or something. I don't know what it was, and they're like, so essentially it's a ship of the dead, and it's like, oh, really? Did they really? And then the writer came out. He's like, yeah, no, we just thought the name sounded cool. So sorry, guys. But hey, if you go by what Robert Altman says, whether or not something was intended, that doesn't mean it's not there. So there you go. There's your explanation for why it's not in the other universe.
I really hate that you attribute that characteristic, that notion to Robert Altman, because I personally subscribe to that philosophy, and I did not care for Robert Altman.
Oh, come on. You like The Long Goodbye and stuff like that, right? The Player? Right, yeah. The Player? Everyone loves The Player.
Player's all right, yeah.
Okay. So here's the scene, the scene which everyone is loving, because it's the scene where Saru steps up to the streets. And
really?
Well, I don't know.
We're doing that.
It's just an everyday saying in my.
People just say he steps up to the streets.
I do, but whatever,
Okay.
And here it is, this little thing where they're like, we're probably all going to die. And he just does that little head nod like that. To me, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but that reminds me a lot of Saving Private Ryan. There's a moment in that movie where Tom Hanks's character does that little head nod and then does something, which, kind of whatever. And it's almost like this moment where it's like, he's presented with all the information. He processes it in his head. He does that little nod because he just in that, those 2 or 3 seconds basically thought of, put all the pieces together and thought of everything which he's saying right now. And he's like, okay, I got this. And then he goes in and, says it to the troops or whatever, and, inspires them all and to do their thing. And I don't know. I mean, everyone's talking about how awesome this speech is, and I agree. And certainly, it is kind of like what this entire show has been leading up to. I mean, when you think about going all the way back to episode 3, when we were first introduced to the crew of the Discovery, and everyone was very, very sort of mean and kind of emo and standoffish and everything. And now we're at this point where those same people are becoming that Starfleet crew that we all know and love in the general sense, right? The thing that we love about Star Wars, Star Trek, and its optimism and all that stuff. It's the mirror universe. Anything goes. Then, it's like that's certainly a cool moment, for sure. And I like that scene a lot too. But to me, the thing which really sort of pushes it over the top is Doug Jones's performance, his delivery of it. And it starts with that. I mean, that little nod. It's just this little itty bitty thing. But it's as soon as he does it, you're just oh yeah, we're going to be okay. He doesn't even need to say anything else, but he's going to, right? Because that's, I don't know. I like it. It's cool. I like that scene.
Sure. I like that it's understated and it doesn't end with a big swelling musical score where, he tries to inspire not only his people, but also the audience. I'm really on the fence most of the time while watching this show. And so when I realized oh, they're planning a suicide mission, I was like, oh, you do not give an inspiring speech to these people. Do not try that. Do not try that. I will be really upset. If you end this with some kind of today we celebrate our Prime Universe Independence Day, I would be enraged. And it was very understated and he was very logical and he made the point, and I was like, okay. But pass.
But I also love that moment because he is being logical about it. He's this is what my species does. My species is known for freaking out about dying, and I'm not freaking out, so you shouldn't freak out either, you know? Like, that to me was like the most, like, when he said that, I'm like, yeah, like, more than any of that other stuff, more than like, you know, this is our ship now, this is our maiden voyage. It's like, well, that's cool and everything, but like, if I were one of those people, when he said, like, you know, I sense the coming of death and I don't sense it now, you know, I'd be like, all right, we're not going to die, guys.
If you said any of this stuff the way you're relaying it, I'd be like, no, not cool.
I don't know, you know, but he I get to see, but that's what sets him apart. That's what's going to make him a good. And here's the other thing, like this whole time, like, you know, I mean, we talked a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I don't think that you know, Lorca's going to make it out of this season alive, you know. And there was a lot of thought, you know. I think a lot of people kind of assumed like, well, Burnham is going to become, you know, captain. And, you know, because she was the one who leapfrogged over Saru once before. And, you know, now, you know, and all that stuff. And, you know, you look at Saru. I mean, like when we first saw Saru here as the first officer, I was like, oh, that's just one of those things where like the guy in front of you dies and you just kind of, you know, you get the job by default, you know, but like, and the whole time it's like he doesn't really seem like he's a very good captain, you know. He's not captain material, you know. He's going to be like Riker, where he's a first officer forever. And then when he gave this speech right here, and then like later in the episode where he actually like executes this plan and everything, I'm like, oh yeah, Saru really is the captain, you know. I think he will be the captain. I mean, if they now after this episode, if they give it to Burnham and they leapfrog over him, then they're just being a bunch of jerks. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't see it going to Burnham like in any like super soon, like without like a significant time jump. But I see a lot of like crazy like jumping around in terms of where they are kind of thing going on. I mean, we know how this episode ends, so we also know that time travel is coming. We also know that a lot of weird stuff is going to happen. So,
well, we don't necessarily know that for sure. I mean, there's some people who think that they're going to jump back the 9 months, but there's other people who think no, they're just going to fix it, and that's going to be like one of the explanations for why, you know, all this tech or whatever that they found, whether it's, you know, the spore drive or whether it's the, you know, cloaking thing or whatever, why all of that has become like null and void by, you know, the time of TOS, is that basically those 9 months that they were gone, you know, a lot of stuff got messed up. But I don't know. I'm because my initial thought was like, yeah, they're going to go back 9 months, but now I'm kind of like, maybe they won't, you know. I don't know. But I mean, the other thing, which, you know, I would have thought the same thing, really. But the thing which kind of, I guess, ruined it for me is, you know, I saw a thing with the showrunners talking about season 2, and they were like, oh, we're 10 years before the original series. Well, actually, now we're 9 years, which makes it think that they are just going to sort of progress the show in real time, at least for the time being, you know? All right, so there's a bunch of stuff blowing up here and everything like that, and this sequence again, really cool action sequence because hey, you've got Michelle Yeoh on your TV show. How are you not going to have her, you know, kicking some ass, right?
It seemed like they did get her to do a little bit of fighting early on, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense that she would fight. Seems kind of like a waste. I mean, we know that she can actually fly, so like, let's just have her actually fly.
That's true. Still, you know, I this sequence is really cool. I think one of the reasons why it works so well is because it's so well choreographed. You know, it doesn't. I mean, there's some hand-to-hand combat sequences in, you know, the new JJ movies where it really just kind of feels like some people punching each other and falling off of cliffs. You know, hanging off of cliffs and stuff like that. But like
falling off of cliffs, jumping onto cliffs, hanging onto cliffs that you fell off of or jumped onto. Yeah.
But it feels like the choreography is very sound, and the way that it's shot, I think, is also, really good. I mean, we were talking about that earlier. I mean, and character moments too, and everything. Like, Lorca slashing his first officer in the back, in order to, do whatever, kind of very Joker-esque, I guess you could say.
Yeah, there were only like 2 or 3 moments during this where I was like, wait, who wearing gold was just stabbing another person wearing gold? There was very little of that.
It's really well done. This episode was directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi, who's the producing director on the show, and he really brought his A game here. So,
yeah.
And I love how this is like consistent with every time we see, Burnham fighting anywhere. Like all of her moves, all of her strategy is based on trying to pinch someone's neck, which makes sense, It's like Spock Fu or whatever, right?
Yeah, the dominant strategy.
Yeah.
If Spock Fu.
It works.
I just flashed the Genesis game named that never existed but totally should have.
Oh, yeah.
It's a shame that wasn't made.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can
released at the same time as Shaq Fu. That would have been amazing.
Yeah. Yes, and there goes Lorca. I was
there
surprised.
Goes this Lorca. We know that there was another one, and we have no confirmation that he's dead.
I think he's dead.
That seems like kind of like a waste. They got a Lorca who may or may not be dead. Like you're gonna bring in a Lorca at some point. That would be pretty cool.
Well, this was my thinking, was like, right, he's like falling into like the mycelial network or whatever. Is he going to pop up somewhere now? I mean, if Darth Maul can survive that type of thing, I can imagine Lorca can too, right?
I guess, sure. Yeah. If we're using Darth Maul as our,
guys getting chopped in half and thrown down, holes. I mean, that's...
Yeah, maybe Lorca comes back and he has fungus legs.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I mean, the thing was like, Jason Isaacs was on After Trek and he's like, oh, I think I'm pretty much dead for good. I don't think you're going to see anything more from me. It's, highly unlikely that I'm going to merge with the mycelial network or anything like that. And
I believe nothing that man says.
Right.
He's a Slytherin.
Right. And he's said that. He's like, why? He's like, I've been lying to you for the past, 6 months or whatever it is. Why would you believe anything that I say? And so I almost think, him being rather humorous, I wonder if he literally just told us what was going to happen, but in such a way that no one would believe him. Is he coming back? I don't know. We'll see. And I like this moment a lot. I kind of love this right here where Burnham saves Mirror Giorgio, because like from Burnham's perspective, like you can totally understand why she's doing this, because she's not thinking rationally at all. She's like, I let my Giorgio die and I'm not going to let it happen again, but boy, that really does change some things in terms of the dynamics on this show. Like, how do you deal with her? Because I mean, like, my first thought is like, get that gun out of her hand right now, but like, yes, she's murdered, thousands of people in cold blood, most likely, right? She's like a tyrannical emperor, but has she committed any crimes? I don't think she could. I think you can't like just throw her in the brig, because then you're just like basically placing your values on this person, right?
I agree completely. I would put her in the brig.
Okay, but it's a weird ethical dilemma, you know?
Not really. Okay. She's dangerous. She was like, choose one, and they ate that Kelpian.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'm saying like maybe,
all right.
I'm not saying like, offer her her own ship or anything like that. I'm just saying like, can you really just, I don't know. There seems to be some shady moral territory there. Also, it seems like as far as mirror universe, rulers are concerned, she's maybe not that terrible.
Yeah. I wouldn't trust her with a ship of the month subscription. She's from the mirror universe. They had someone from the mirror universe there a little while ago. That didn't go well.
I guess so, but it seems like she's like when Lorca was taking over, like it almost seems like she's more.
Hey, I'm not saying keep her there. I'm just saying like before you like do anything else, just put her in the brig and like have a nice sit down where you go like, okay, here's the deal. You know how you rise to power? We don't do that. Please don't stab anyone if we let you out. It would be so great. It would be so great if you didn't stab anyone on the ship, please.
It is interesting. I mean, and it brings into question all sorts of things since this is a prequel, because like the Enterprise on Mirror Mirror, right? In Mirror Mirror, like they seem legitimately surprised that they're going to this parallel universe. And, when you see...
And later on, way later on, they talk about that the first time it happened.
Yeah.
The first time.
Right, because they obviously don't know about the Defiant and everything. So...
Well, no. The Defiant is just a ship. That wasn't people. They weren't, like, there.
Well, they were dead, yeah.
Right, like it's not the same thing. Like the first time people from your universe interfered with our universe, like that's a thing that happened with that episode. It did not involve a guy who spent some time in your universe and then mounted a coup that was more or less successful, but it did actually end up with him and the Emperor. That would come up in conversation.
But maybe just because what we can assume that ship blew up, right? So everyone who was involved with the situation is now dead, right?
Sure. If we assume that they did not have any sort of communication about it, but like we also know that they did kind of have some communication about it.
Okay.
Like the information is out there. Like they knew about the Defiant. They knew about how like the other universe existed. They knew about the Federation. They knew all of those things. It seems very implausible to me that like that information wouldn't get out. Yeah. So, once again, time travel. It's coming up. There's a big sci-fi reset button in the future of this show.
Okay. All right. We just saw that little spore land on Tilly's shoulder. I almost thought that was just kind of like a, it's like, oh, look at this, spores everywhere, and let's just follow one until it hits a shoulder, and then that's just a nice way of ending that little sequence. But no, apparently that's going to play a role in season 2. So there you go.
Oh, green spore's coming back?
Yeah.
Wow, they're going to bring back green spore. All right. That'll be cool. I saw that thing floating and I was like, oh, they're just doing a little like poetic little floating down spore thing just to establish the spores are back and alive and glowing green. Right. Actually, none of the other ones are glowing green. Right. Oh, that's an important spore. Oh, that's dumb.
Yep, that spore is going to be in season 2. It's going to be played by Alicia Silverstone.
Oh, I'm on board now.
Me too.
100% on board.
Yeah. And oh boy, there's Klingons all over this place. What are we going to do?
What do you do when you're surrounded by Klingons? You know what you don't do? Ask Klingons for help.
Okay. All right. Well,
you don't do that. That's not a good plan.
Okay. All right. Something to keep in mind for next week. Only 2 episodes left. So exciting. So exciting. I have no idea where how they're gonna end this thing, to be honest. It's gonna be crazy. But
I got my fingers crossed, because if they're really revolutionary and crazy and they're going outside the box and they're doing stuff that no other Star Trek would have the guts to do, time travel, present day America. Just saying it.
That'd be interesting. Would be interesting.
I want them to go to present day America and be like, this is not our timeline. Something is messed up.
They could do that. Well, I guess we'll find out. Until then, be sure to check out our Discovery coverage throughout the week. Live from the Edge airs on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern with Bruce and Brandy, and will be released as a podcast on Tuesday mornings. Then this show, Tracks from the Edge, is going to be released on Wednesdays with the two of us, and then we'll discuss your feedback on Postcards from the Edge with Amy on Thursday. And of course, you can catch full analysis on the Edge main show on Friday with Brandon. And then to wrap up each week, join us for Notes from the Edge on Saturday with Chris for links between Discovery and the broader franchise. You'll find all of these shows in the main feed for the Edge or in the Trek FM master feed. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Discovery. The best place to do that is in the Babel Conference, which is our listeners group on Facebook, where Amy Nelson will collect all of your feedback for Postcards from the Edge. You can also find us on Twitter at TrekFM, or send us an email using the contact form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Just choose to send to a show and choose the Edge. We'd like to thank our associate producers today, Norman C. Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoaib Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, and Cornelia Reutner. Thank you very much, everybody. If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows going and even become an associate producer yourself, visit patreon.com/trekfm for all the details. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. Crazy episode. Lots of stuff going on. Can't wait to see what they do next week. And next week's weird because we don't have any idea who's writing or directing it. Nicholas Meyer? We shall see. But until then, keep your spore drive spinning. Is that good?
No, but it's not going to get any better.
Okay.